All right, what is going on? What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome on into today's edition of Sixers game recap as we're looking back at Wednesday night's comeback victory back at home after a tough four-game road trip, getting big dub over a Dallas Mavericks team who are fighting for their playoff lives. They're in the play-in spot, actually right outside of the play-in spot, and the Sixers get a 116 to 108 win. Sixers were down in this game. And obviously, when you're looking at this matchup last night, you're thinking back to the matchup that happened a couple weeks ago, where the Sixers on a Friday night in Dallas allowed 82 points between Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, this new lethal backcourt that the Dallas Mavericks has created over the trade deadline time. And this time around, the Sixers hold those two to about half of that. And so overall, this was a better performance defensively, yes. There was still some of its woes, especially in the first half, which we'll talk about. Offensively, there was some rust. Obviously, this was the first game back that you had between James and Joel in a while, and over a week. You were been able to have both those beasts on the court at the same time. And listen, this is a tough schedule. And this has been the narrative of every time we've talked about the Sixers as of late. We're talking about this tough schedule heading into the playoffs. But you got to find a way to claw through these and find a way to get it done. You're preparing yourself. This is the preparation. And for the Sixers, obviously, still some quirks to work on, even with what? We have like 4 or 5 games left into the season. And so I will say this. There are concerns with the Sixers, but I genuinely feel good about this team heading into the playoffs. You just think about if the Sixers were to play a full 4 quarters, in which, look, everybody and their mom, especially a playoff tested team like the Sixers, take their intensity level to the next level. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my biggest issue and my biggest concern of the Sixers, but that's something that can absolutely be corrected. And so, with that, we take it into this recap, and I want to formally welcome everyone into today's recap. We're talking about Wednesday night's victory for the Sixers over the Dallas Mavericks, 116 to 108. If you guys enjoyed today's content, do me the solid, hit that like button, and subscribe for more Philly sports as we discuss it all. And of course, I know it's Sixers game recap, but it is Thursday, March 30th, and that means it is opening day for baseball, but of course for our Philadelphia Phillies. They won't be in Philly, which does suck, but they'll be down in Dallas, in the Dallas area, ironically as it is. So, of course, to the Dallas Mavericks, to the Texas Rangers, and of course, to the team we hate the most, the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas, you suck! We got to put that in there. You just got it. You absolutely have to. But awesome stuff, guys. Thank you so much for tuning on in. All right, so again, you're coming into this game thinking about what happened in Dallas a couple weeks ago. You just defensively, it was just atrocious. I mean, besides the fact of allowing 82 between Luka and Kyrie, who at that point seemed to have been having a little bit more fun in the early goings of that partnership. It hasn't been as pretty as of late, and they have struggled mightily to the point where they have actually fallen out of the play-in spot. They're in 11th right now, so they're right there in 10th with, I do believe it is the Portland Trailblazers. I'll have to double check. We'll check the standings in a little bit overall because the Sixers are also, they have their own seating problems of themselves. Now, luckily, we do have a playoff spot, a little guaranteed here. We did clinch the playoffs last week, by the way, if you guys didn't miss that one. But you still obviously keeping an eye on seedings. You know, my thoughts on this. I'm not really per se in on the whole number one seed. I'm not really concerned about that, but I do want them to at least be, have some home court advantage in some of these series. And especially in that second round, which is, you know what? We don't even need home court advantage second round. Make it as difficult as possible. We'll find our way out of it. But no, so you're fighting, both teams fighting for playoff spots. So the intensity level just off of the storylines definitely should have brought the intensity level up for both sides. And obviously, the big one is Joel and James coming back into the lineup after missing a couple games. Of course, a lot of criticism, a lot of controversy for Joel Embiid for missing Monday night's game against Denver. For a lot of people, that was the MVP capitalizer for Embiid. If he would have just shown up and played well in that game, he would have locked up the MVP. And we have all our ideas or our thoughts, our opinions on the matter. For me personally, I've told you this countless of times. I just don't care. And for all the people, listen, Joel Embiid made his statement. All right, he called out Nikola Jokic, and what did he do? He displayed his talent and his point in Philadelphia, in front of his home crowd on primetime TV. Was it earlier in the season? Yes, but he did do it, and he put together a fantastic season overall from game one to game 76. I do believe there's some teams in their 77th game. But from game one till now, you can't tell me that overall there hasn't been a better player than Joel Embiid. You honestly can't. Obviously, Luka's had his moments. Giannis has had his moments. And of course, Nikola Jokic has had his moments as well. And even on Monday night, I didn't think that Jokic had a spectacular performance that locked up a MVP for his third MVP for himself. But it's just unfortunate how these voters do work. And obviously, there's a little bit of bias and there's a little bit of, I guess I will say, disdain towards Joel Embiid for as far as these voters go. I do understand injuries do play a part of this, but Joel Embiid has played the most games that he has in his career up until this point, and I know he's missed quite a few games, but it kind of is. It is what it is. Um, if you guys are concerned of the way the Sixers kind of handle this, be my guest. I could care less. I genuinely could care less because I don't need another individual accolade. I'm a Philly sports fan. And when Bryce Harper won the MVP, that really did suffice me. And then on top of that, Joel Embiid, obvious being the obvious MVP, just watching him play on a night-to-night basis, it's just a blessing as it is. And then watching Gazdag with an MVP type performance last year was a lot of freaking fun. Watching Jalen Hurts with the MVP type season is a lot of freaking fun. I know we all want the trophies, we all want the hardware because we're just the underdog, and we have like that small guy mentality sometimes here as Philly sports fans. But being grateful and understanding what we are watching, the greatness of what we are watching in this city. It's been a long time since there has been an array of extremely talented generational talents within each of these leagues. Dude, you're talking Bryce Harper, Joel Embiid, Jalen Hurts, Daniel Gazek, throw Andre Blake in there as well in there. And then there's a Flyers. And then there's the Flyers. But you guys get my point. I'm just extremely thankful about that. But let's get to this game. So with all that drama being said, you still got work to do. And you still had payback to be delivered here against the Dallas Mavericks. And unfortunately, to start off this game, it did start off slow. And the Sixers did, they kind of, it felt like the last time we played Dallas. It felt like Dallas was about to go on a huge run. Luka and Kyrie about to put their and one mixtape on, and they got to as big of a lead as a 12-point lead late into the second quarter. I want to say a little bit past the halfway point. They got their 12-point lead, and then the Sixers started cutting down to the lead. And then it was, I believe, it was a tied up game, and then George's Niang right at halftime, freaking he fouls. I believe, what was it? Who was the guy? Was it Green? Oh, I pull it up right here. It was Green. He fouls Green at the corner, and then that gives Green a 4-point play opportunity. And so you unfortunately you did the same thing at the end of the third quarter where Jalen McDaniels fouls, and that extends the lead after tying it up. But so it felt like after the 6 minute, after the fact that the Mavs went up by 12, the Sixers got their stuff together, and all it really was lifting the intensity of the entire team. It's the same thing that we have said with the defensive woes all throughout the season, but that's really all it took. Yes, Doc threw the zone defense out there. I don't know why he would throw the zone defense out there to a talented shooting team. But the zone was there at times throughout the second half, but the reason why it was effective was the intensity was there. Whereas in the first half, you got guys, just standing there like, no, and then in the second half, you start seeing some more intensity. Feet start shuffling a little more. You start sprinting to open guys, and that was the big difference. And Dallas got cold, Sixers got more physical, and you saw what happened. And the big reason why you won the game was you were more efficient. We'll go through that in just a little bit. But to close out the game, it still was close. Halfway through the fourth quarter, thanks to good ball movement, Joel and James started getting to the rim. They didn't have a great game. They didn't start the game off on the right note, but at some point, something in the fourth quarter clicked in both of their heads, and that really got the offense going. And it's crazy because they still stayed in this game up until that point, even despite Joel and James being a little bit off. But once they got the thing rolling, pick and roll game started going, they're knocking down some shots, getting to the free throw line, as you guys know. That's when things started shifting back into the momentum of the Sixers. The Mavs wouldn't go away, but the Sixers just showed you why they make me feel confident going into the playoffs. Because at any point, when you have generational talents like Joel and James, that type of stuff is going to happen. That's how the Sixers would win. They played professional basketball, as I like to say, as Doc likes to say. They played professional basketball in the last 6 minutes of this game, and they were able to close it out, get into that free throw line, and Dallas just had no answers. They were cold as ice, cold as last night here in Philadelphia. But big reason for this victory, in my opinion, obviously the intensity getting turned up was a big factor of it. Obviously, Joel and James finding their rhythm was a big factor. But just the efficiency in shooting was a big difference, in my opinion, because they played like the Sixers played like dog crap through like 2.5 quarters, and they finished with better shooting numbers: 46% from the field, 45 for Dallas, but the big one, 47% from the 3-point line, whereas Dallas shot 39% from the free throw line, and that to me was a big factor into this one. You got some big contributions from a lot of guys from the 3-point line. The big one was D'Anthony Melton, who came off the bench. You had your typical starting lineup, and this is more likely what's going to be the starting lineup in come playoff time. You had Tobias, let's do this right. Yeah, Joel, PJ, Tobias, Tyrese Maxey, and of course James Harden rounding it out as your starting 11. And I am curious to see if we did get a glimpse of what the bench rotation will look like. And I'll explain in just a second. But again, shooting was a big factor coming back. D'Anthony Melton with 5 threes. Georges Niang provided 4 threes. His quick release is huge. Tyrese Maxey with 4 threes as well. James provided 2. Joel 1. Jalen McDaniels gave you 1 as well. But that's good enough for 17 threes, and that's 47% from the field. But those are big shots, because a lot of those shots came in the time where you're trying to come back, third and fourth quarters. A lot of those guys were knocking down threes, and so that was definitely a big factor. 11 to 8, the offensive rebounds, not obviously didn't kill them there, but that's definitely a positive to see. Anytime you talk about defensive woes with the Sixers, that is one category you're always going to be keeping an eye out for. But I overall, I just thought that this was a good team performance. Especially the Sixers do have problems at times dictating and controlling the pace of the game. And I really felt like when they were closing out the Mavs, that's the one thing they did really well: controlled the pace of the game. And Dallas wanted to move quick, and they threw a lot of long passes. And then you got guys like D'Anthony and James just tipping balls and creating turnovers. Paul Reed got his backup center minutes, ladies and gentlemen, almost 15 minutes here. Paul Reed is the backup center. I don't need to hear, I don't need to see it anymore, Doc. He is the backup center. But so here's the thing, right? So you obviously had the main 5 as your starting lineup. The interesting part was D'Anthony got 32 minutes. George had 19 minutes. Now, the question is that your 6th and 7th peep guys off the bench? McDaniels provided you 15 minutes, and then Paul Reed came off the bench. So does that mean that Shake Milton is out of the rotation? He didn't even get a single minute. Daniel House got in there for 5 seconds. So that's intriguing as all hell, because it's funny because we talked about the rotation during the last recap, and we wonder what that would be. Obviously, D'Anthony is no matter what, the first guy coming off the bench. But then you were thinking that it's, D'Anthony, George, Paul, Shake. And Shake is kind of, and from what this looked like, Shake was out of it. And it does kind of make sense because you're obviously, look, Tyrese got 34 minutes. James got 38 minutes here tonight. And that's probably what's going to be happening come playoff time. You're going to be seeing James and Tyrese getting almost 40 minutes each, 30 to 40 minutes each. And so D'Anthony's going to get his 30 plus as well. So that's not going to leave a lot of room for Shake Milton. And I'm not going to be sitting here saying that Shake Milton should get his minutes, but I know there are limitations to his game, and I will say he has improved, especially with the talent that's been around him. I feel like his game he has a better understanding of the game, and I think that's what's really been helping him. I know he's a little bit stubborn, but he does love to take his shots, but he's been playing much, much better. But that's something to keep an eye out for, especially with these last couple games. It's not like you got like a bunch of, as George Niang would say, cupcake games. I mean, you still got Toronto coming up, and then you got Miami after that. So it's still going to be some challenging stuff here. But look, these games have been a gauntlet, and these games have been a preparation for the Sixers team as we are heading into the playoffs here. But to me personally, this is what I want to see. Like, I want to see the Sixers go up against some tough teams heading to the playoffs because that's like the environment last night, the intensity on the court, the crowd in the stands. That's what you're going to see come playoff time. And they need to be prepared for that. And I know like this team is playoff tested before, but it's still always good to get you into that rhythm as you head into playoff time here. But MVP is Joel going to win the MVP? Who the hell knows? I've given up on it. I really. And you know what? If the voters, I'll say this: if the voters do give it to Nikola Jokic, I think everyone should lose hope on that award because Nikola Jokic also isn't the MVP either. The tough part about it is that I don't like. I just think that the way Luka and Giannis has been quiet as well. Luka's obviously dealing with his stuff down in Dallas, and Luka still had a solid game, dude. That step back three is just dangerous, man, and he knocks that down at a high clip. You saw D'Anthony melting with this step back. Yo, what is James cooking up in these practices with these young guards, man? It is crazy. But, all right, so as I promised, the standings right now. So right now, the Philadelphia 76ers are sitting in third place. I mean, this last stretch is important here because I think third is perfect. I think it's perfect for the Sixers. You're not too high up. You still get home court, most of it, unless you got to play Boston or Milwaukee. But I like that spot right there. But you do have Cleveland right behind them. They currently right now are 2.5 back of the Philadelphia 76ers. So keep that distance from Cleveland. Especially, if you have to face off against Cleveland in the playoffs, which I don't know how that would happen, but I don't want to face off against that team either. So it's Milwaukee still in first. I think they got the number one seed. They have they're 3 games up on the number one seed. Boston's in second. Us again in third. Cleveland in fourth. You got the Knicks in fifth. The Brooklyn Nets in sixth. And kudos to the Nets. Before the whole trade and the drama and the shenanigans with the Nets, they were in the top 4 of the East, and they have found themselves staying in I guess, what do you call that? I guess they don't have to play in the play-in. I don't know what you would call it, but they don't have to play in the play-in. So that's pretty impressive. But they got to keep that up because Miami's right behind them in 7th. Atlanta's in 8th. Toronto's in 9th. And then Chicago is in 10th place here. Washington and Indiana are right behind them. Washington is actually 2 games back. Indiana is 3.5 back of Chicago. So I do think Chicago will actually lock up that spot there. And then there's, Bradley Beal. What you gonna do? Bradley Beal and Dame Lillard should just team up together. Just play. I can't even say the Kings anymore. Just play for the worst basketball team out there. I can't even say this word. Those two need to just team up. And that is what it is. On the West side, you have guys Denver in first, Memphis in second, Sacramento surprisingly third, Phoenix in fourth, the Clippers in fifth. You got the Warriors in sixth, the Timberwolves in seventh, the Lakers in eighth, the Pelicans in ninth, and the Thunder. over the Dallas Mavericks. That's definitely intriguing. What's intriguing too is that Utah and Portland are all looking outside, or outside looking in, where those two were near the top of the seedings earlier in the season. It's why you got to play your games, ladies and gentlemen. It's why you got to play your games. So, um, again, tough stretch here for the Sixers. They're back at it again tomorrow against the pesky Toronto Raptors. So we'll see what that brings for us. But that's going to do it for today's Sixers game recap. Again, the Sixers get the big dub against the Dallas Mavericks, 116-108, and we're off to Toronto. Thanks so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe for more Philly sports. And until next time, I go by the name of Parcero Philly, and I'm telling you guys, let's go Philly sports. Let's go Phils.